my middle name, Kimberly.
Oh, good. I like it already. Okay. So
Right, I'm ready.
wondering if before we sort of started properly, if you could just
Yep.
tell us a little bit about yourself and your setting and your background, really.
So at the moment, I manage a nursery that my mum owns. So my mum owns it. We're a family-run setting. Quite big now. We started with one building, and we've got 3 now that we operate from. But I have always really worked with my mum. So I did a little bit of work for our local council, supporting some settings, particularly when the Vulnerable 2 funding came out. So I did a lot of work with some local settings around their environments and their, the way that they did their work with their twos.
Yeah.
But not really. I've only really worked properly where I am now. But I've got a degree in early years, and then I took a gap year, and then I went on and did my master's degree in early years as well. Considered the PhD a little bit, but then life gets in the way. Children happen, houses happen, husbands happen. So never really went back there really.
But you can always return to it if you need to.
You can.
It's right. It's never too late, is it?
No, it's never too late, and I think that's part of the reason, really, why we are the way that we are at the nursery, because we are always learning, and you never, even if you get the outstanding, you're never really where you can be. There's always more that you can do, which is one of the reasons why we took on the accreditation, really. I've just written a book actually with Laura, who runs Stone Hen.
Oh yes, I know Laura very well.
So I have just written a book. I'm writing 3 at the moment. I've just finished my first one, which is all about creativity in the early years. And so the first one is based on babies, and so Laura gave me quite a lot of images from her setting. She contributed quite a lot, and it was her actually that started that had talked about the accreditation when she was talking about her influences and her inspirations and things. Your name came up actually, and so we had a little bit of a chat, and she said, "Oh, if you ever want to do the accreditation," she gave me the link, and we've been following you quite a while on Facebook, and never really. I suppose it's like life, really. Things just get in the way, and you kind of follow the pages, and you think, "I'd really like to do that." And you look at things like budgets, and that's something that affects everybody, and you think, oh my goodness, we can't do it. And then you look at some of the photographs and some of the inspirations from the other settings and think, actually we can do it. It is achievable. And then of course when you put on that you could pay monthly, that was it. Then it was like, actually we could do this now. We could do this.
Oh, I'm so glad that it's working for you. And when we first set out doing the Hygge and the early years accreditation, we just did a one-off payment, which worked okay for some settings, schools as well that just get their budget in like a big amount. But I found for childminders and nurseries, they wanted something different. They wanted a payment plan. So yeah, it's great that we can now offer that and have more flexible ways of paying, and you being able to access it then.
Yeah. And it's like I say, it's different if you're a school and like you say, you get a budget and you can go, right, this portion is going to this and this portion is going here. And I think when you're a nursery, I mean, it's slightly different as well for us because we're privately run. And so if you're you're maintained and you're at a school, you get a budget very similar. Whereas when you're private and you are for profit, you kind of have to make your own, really. It's not, you don't just get those budgets, you have to find them for yourselves. So yeah, it's really lovely that everybody now can access it.
Oh, I'm so glad. And also there's so much fabulous training out there as well at the moment that you just want to make sure that you're investing in the right thing as well. It's really nice that Laura from Stonehenge Childcare could be a recommendation, and you could see some of the work that she'd done and see it in practice then. Just to reassure you.
Yeah, it's lovely. I think there's a couple, because there are a couple now, I think, that do the accreditations on different things. And I think the nice thing about the Hygge one is that actually it's something that not everybody knows about. And so when you look at some of the other ones that we considered, you know, and cost isn't everything, but, you know, when you look at what we are trying to create with our setting and the feeling that we want for the children and what we're trying to bring into our provision, lots of the other places and the other, you know, the other kind of ways that you can get an accredited setting, they're already things that we do. And so lots of them have got all of their inspiration from, you know, the pioneers of early years. They've got the Montessori, they've got the Reggio, they've got all those different bits. And those, for us, we felt that actually those were the things we were already doing. You know, we already invested in authentic materials. We already don't really have lots of plastic, lots of brightly coloured. We've already kind of started our journey in that way, that we understand the importance for children of calm environments, you know, places where they can feel warm and loved and valued. And then of course their learning is just going to come from that. And for the rest of the staff, the nice thing, like I say, about the Hygge accreditation is that it is learning for them, because they don't necessarily know where it comes from. They don't necessarily know all of the different elements. So it's lovely that they can learn as well on some of the others. I felt that if we'd have invested in those, we wouldn't perhaps have got out as much as we are doing with this one.
Oh, that's so lovely to hear. And I think one of the main things for me when I was designing the training was that we could just develop that 360-degree version of ourselves, our best self.
Yeah.
Because when I was a teacher and I was going on all of these wonderful courses, it was great for my professional development, but actually I never had the time to implement any changes. I would still be running around like a headless chicken trying to get everything done. And so I needed something that supported my well-being and my health, as well as all of that professional knowledge and development. So that's why I tried to build the Hygge in the early years accreditation as I have, really, just to try and involve all aspects of our life and try and make it accessible then to everyone that's taking part, so that we're working on being more sort of rounded, I guess, as a person. Going back to your setting, if that's okay. You're a family own setting, which also fits into that Hygge, I feel, really, really well, trying to create that homely environment.
Yeah, it is. And I think that is kind of one of our selling points, really. And a lot of our families like the fact that we are family run, because, as I say, it's my mum and dad that own the setting. So my dad was in the army, got out of the army and then came and joined us. So he was a chef. So now he cooks all of our meals. He does all of our snacks, make it all from fresh. So we don't buy in or anything like that. My mum works there full time. I'm there when I can be. Usually I work 5 days a week, but obviously I've got a 6-year-old as well. So I've got to do the school runs and things like that. And then my sister, she married into the military, went over to Germany. She did 3 years there. So now she's back. So the 4 of us, my mum, my dad, my sister and myself, we're all there 5 days a week. And I think, like I say, a lot of our families really like the fact that we are all there, and we try and build those relationships and those connections with the children and their parents. And it's not, we don't really have a businessy feel, if you like. You know, you don't walk into our setting and think it's a business. It's more like an extension of our family, really. And that's just the best way, I think.
I agree with you, and that's how you're going to get your children and your families settled and happy and wanting to access what you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you've started on the Hygge in the early years accreditation recently. I'd love to know sort of how you got started. How did you introduce it to your team? Did you do anything in particular with them? Any training?
Well, we did. Well, I looked at logged on. So once I'd done it, logged on to kind of get the lay of the land, really, and see, you know, the setup, the context, how it was kind of meant to happen, really. Because I noticed that all the modules come down, the titles of all the modules and all the sections are there, which is lovely because you see what's coming next, which I think is why I asked the question on the Facebook page, because there was, for me, I wondered whether you were supposed to do it, you know, kind of chronologically right from start to finish, because a couple of the sections that were later on, I wondered maybe if they would be beneficial a little bit earlier, so that maybe we, I don't know, knew what Hygge was before we'd done the 4 introductory bits. But no, it totally makes sense to have to go from start to finish, and actually that is much easier to follow. So we talked, told the staff obviously that's what we were planning on doing. Like I say, it's really good that it works for your home life as well, so it's not all about your setting, because I agree with you, when you do some of these others you think, well, that's lovely, but actually if you've got a home, a little bit like myself, I suppose, you know, I've got a husband, 2 children, 2 dogs, house, and you think, actually my home life is mad and I need some strategies that are transferable, that I can do this at work, I can do this with the children, but actually I can come home and I can do it with my own children. You know, I can go for my dog walks, I can go and do some of these things that we've put into place at nursery. And the staff really liked that as well. You know, they were really up for learning about really how to calm themselves down and how to slow down, because I think lots of adults really struggle with that. And I think if we're struggling with that, then how do we expect them to be able, you know, how do we expect our children to be able to calm down, slow down, and just breathe a little bit? So I did kind of skip ahead a little bit, and I watched a couple of the videos before I talked to the staff, just so really that I could make clear in my head what it was about, in order to give it to them, because what I didn't want to do is, you know, go into the first staff meeting and say, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to watch these videos. We're going to follow in we're going to do the tasks. And then they start asking me questions that I couldn't really answer. So I found that really helpful, that actually you can access at least the first 7 before you've done anything, because it gives us as leaders and managers the ability to look and know what they're going to do with their staff.
I think that's really key. I'm so sorry to interrupt you there.
No, don't.
Really
keep going.
Key. When you're introducing something new as a leader, you need to have that confidence that what you're training your staff on is relevant. And, you know, whenever you're introducing something new, there will be questions that come up from your staff about, well, how will we do it? How will we make it work for us? And if you're not confident about it yourself, you're not going to be able to answer those questions in a way that informs the staff member about what they're doing. So you did absolutely the right thing, and that's really good advice for anyone else that's approaching the accreditation as well, to maybe just go through it first and have a look at what it actually involves and have a read through things. So that's a really good tip. So then, did you get your staff together for a meeting?
We did, so we decided that we were going to do one a month. So we looked at, obviously it's a year-ish, and kind of thought that we could do that in a year. It was very feasible that we could do that in a year. So we decided that we would do a staff meeting a month where we would only talk about the accreditation. So we weren't going to talk about Ofsted, we weren't going to talk about safeguarding, we weren't going to talk about the day-to-day running, we weren't going to do any of that. We were going to focus purely on the accreditation and give the girls, we have all got girls at the moment, it's all girls, you know, give our girls something that they could focus on, really. So like I said, I did read ahead, and we looked at the journals that you advised, and actually that was the best way for us to be able to do that. I know that I read on the accreditation page, on some of the comments, some people have decided to do it digitally, some people have decided to do it in different, you know, make a display and things like that. So we went with scrapbooks. So I bought all of our rooms. We've got 4 rooms. So we've got a baby room, a toddler room, and then we've got a lower preschool and an upper preschool. So I bought all the rooms, an A3 scrapbook, with the hardback spiral bound books. So I bought them one of those. I bought them a pack of pens, because you know what early years are like with pens.
We live our stationery, don't we?
We love it. So pens, felt pens, biros, different bits. And then the first meeting that we had, we watched, it was the introduction section. So I think there's an introduction, and then there's 4 little kind of tidbit videos, really. So we watched all of those. We talked about what Hygge was, what it meant for us as adults. And then I did kind of skip on a little bit, because I think you did either a podcast or a live or a video about vision boards, and it mentioned that if you're not there yet, don't panic. And so I took that and kind of amalgamated it a little bit with the scrapbooks, because what I thought would be really helpful to kind of focus the girls a little bit is to give them little tasks to do in the month that we're not necessarily dealing with, when we are trying to deal with the day-to-day and things like that, to keep them focused on actually the task in hand. And so, for instance, this time we had our meeting, we introduced the journals and said that, look, this was going to be our way of kind of documenting our journey, if you like. And so between now, we've got another meeting at the end of February. And so between the meeting we had and the beginning of February, when we have our next meeting, they were asked to do a front cover for their journal that reflected what they felt that Hygge was, and what it meant for them. They were asked to do an A4 page on themselves, so as adults, so things like their family, the things that made them happy, really. Yeah. And then we also had a chat about how we were going to get it across to the parents, how we were going to inform the parents and make sure that actually they were on board and that they could almost follow our journey with us, really. And so we talked about a display in our reception areas, because obviously they are through areas that everybody sees all the time. And then I also asked them to do a display in their rooms, so that when we had things like a parents' evening, or when we had visitors, or when we had prospective parents that want to come and have a look at the nursery, then they can see as well our kind of commitment to ongoing progress. And so they've been looking at the ways, really, that they are almost like a vision board for the children, effectively. And so it's the ways that they want to bring Hygge into their practice, into their provision, specifically for their rooms and their children. We're halfway there. We haven't got there yet. They've got another couple of weeks. And then hopefully I can take some photographs of those and put them up on the Facebook page once they're all done.
This sounds like such a brilliant start. I really love what you've done here, and I like the fact that each of the members of staff can investigate what Hygge is for them, because for most of them it's probably quite a new concept. So yeah, it's quite nice to explore it, because it does feel differently for each of us. We all find joy in different things. So yeah, we need to almost connect that to ourselves first and tune into it. So I love the fact that you started with this and created some vision boards as well. So I look forward to seeing these over our Facebook group. Another good step as well is to take some photographs of your provision before you start, just so that you've got your clear starting point. Maybe include some examples of the way that you currently plan and organise things like that, just so that you can look back at those and see your journey as you move through the accreditation.
Yeah, I think the first couple of pages of the scrapbook, that's basically what we said for them to do, really, is to write down, the routines that they've got now, the kind of little bits of their day that they don't think are important, to put them down. And then we have, let's say, started to take some photographs of what we've got now and how the room looks. And we just did, so now we moved on. We did that, and then we watched that really, really interesting video. It was a bonus content.
Oh, was it Helen?
Yes,
yes,
that's the one. It says we looked at the what is Hygge, and then we talked about that, and that's when we came out with the vision boards for them. And then just as we were going, because there wasn't really any text under it, so it's bonus. let's just watch it. And actually it was so lovely to have somebody else think what we think, because sometimes, you know, and I suppose it happens to everybody, when you talk to professionals and you talk to other people and you think, you know, are you doing it right? You know, you think, well, this is what we think is right for children. This is what we believe they need to have. And actually to watch that video and to hear her talk about, you know, how childhood is being lost and how children don't have access to all of these things that they should have readily. It was lovely for us as a whole team to go, this is what we think. This is exactly on the right path. We've got a couple of members of staff that have come from other settings who did things differently. And so it's taken a while for them to come round to, actually, this is not the way I've always done it, but this is still better. This is what we need for children. And actually to sit there in a group all together and to be able to have the professional discussions, if there was anything that we disagreed with, if there was anything that any member of staff picked out and thought, well, what is she talking about? Why does she think that? It was nice that all 12 of us were there to be able to say, well, this is why, this is what we think. And yeah, it was really lovely to know that actually there are people that think like we think.
Yeah, it's really
We're trying to get back childhood.
And I think it leaves you feeling really empowered, and you're just thinking, right, we can do some actions, we can make positive change, let's just get on and do it.
Yeah, so, and that's I think what most of us took from it, that actually we are doing the right thing and we have to keep going for the sake of the children. And it is really hard some days, because, you know, you can't tell parents how to parent, and it is really difficult to try and have those conversations where you know that you're doing everything that you can for these children while they're in your care, but that actually when they get home, that's not necessarily what's going on for them. And so it's nice to hear and nice to be able to be a part of something like the accreditation, where actually we can share it with parents and say, look, this is what we're trying to achieve for your children, not just for us, not just so that we can say, oh, well, we're a setting that's done this, we're an accredited setting. It's not about that. It's about the children and trying to make sure that actually they grow up in an environment and they've got that support at home. And I think if them parents can see that we're investing in that for our setting and our children, the idea is hopefully that they will take some of it on board.
I think you've hit the nail on the head perfectly there. This isn't just a tick box exercise. It's not just a training course that's going to get you a certificate at the end to show somebody, look,
we're early years, we like certificates.
It's no, we're creating change, we're making a movement in what we're doing, and we're trying to improve things for the children to have a greater impact. And I know that our days are really busy, but I used to find myself filling my time doing tasks that had no impact whatsoever on the children.
Yeah.
And I'd think to myself, why have I had to do this? You know, it's not benefited them in any way at all. So that was what I felt was really important when developing the training, that we just put the children at the centre of it. But we also put ourselves at the centre of it as well, so that we could fill ourselves with love, so that we had more to give back.
Yeah.
So that we could feel like we're empowering the children too. Oh, it's so interesting to hear how you've started the course, because I try and keep things really flexible so that you can all respond in different ways, and your creative flair can just go off on a tangent if needs be. You know, that's why some people are making displays, some people are doing scrapbooking, some people are holding like well-being walks while they're doing their training. It just depends on what works for you and your team, and there isn't a set way of doing things, which I think seems to work quite well, really. No, it's really good to hear how you've started, and I just can't wait to see your journey now and what changes you make and the impact it has on your families as well that you're working with. It's really good to hear. So thank you so much for all your kind words.
That's all right.
Before we go, a couple of things. One, you told me that you are writing a book. I would love to know more about this and how our listeners can take a read of it.
So I have written a book. So it's called Discover Creativity Babies, and it should be out in the end of April. It should be out. So everybody that contributed will get a free copy. So I will send over a copy to Laura. And I think in fact there are a couple more settings. I think in total I had 13 contributing settings that sent me photographs and different quotes and things. And I think there are a couple that are on either done the accreditation or have been on it. So hopefully that will be out in April, and it's been published by Routledge, so it'll be in bookshops, it'll be on Amazon, it'll be everywhere basically. And it is the first of 3, I hope. It's the first of 3. So the first one is all about babies, so it covers children 0 to 2, because actually one of my kind of passions, I suppose, is creativity and getting children thinking, really. And I kind of felt that there isn't a lot of literature on babies. You know, once you get to 2, everybody wants to talk about you because they're easier. You know, once you start talking yourself, everybody can understand you and you can communicate when you're 2. I think the problem comes when you can't get things like consent from a child under 2, really. They don't communicate in the way that older children do. So I think there is a lot lacking for that particular age group. So kind of saw that and thought, actually, this is something that we could really tap into. And lots of practitioners really struggle, I think, with babies particularly, especially in terms of creativity, because they worry about the mess. They worry about if they're going to eat it. They worry about lots of different things. And so it's a book in 2 parts. So the first part is really about babies. So perfect creative environments for babies, how to build yourself a creative environment, how to creatively choose resources that will obviously foster children being able to make independent choices even at such a young age, giving them the opportunity to be free. And it talks about relationships with adults. It talks about relationships with the key workers that they have, and basically what creativity is, to be honest, because I think that it is so broad, nobody really knows. Yeah. I hope I've kind of given some people some insight. And then the second part is activities. So there are 40 activities in there as well that are all baby safe. So there are some dough recipes, there are some paint recipes, there are, like I say, over 40 different activities that they can do with children 0 to 2 that they'll enjoy, I hope.
This just sounds incredible. When do you find the time just to do all of this? You're like a woman, aren't you?
It was a little bit of a struggle, I think, because I love to learn myself. That's you know, some people do, some people don't. I think I'm one of those people that if there's something to know, I want to know it. And because I didn't go back and do my PhD, it kind of just gives me something. It gives me a purpose. And actually, it took about 6 months to write. So we're just finished final editing now. But yeah, it took a lot away from my family. It took a lot away from obviously the children. I'm really lucky that I've got my husband that, you know, is there to babysit and not babysit. That sounds awful, doesn't it? You can edit that out. That sounds awful. He would be livid. He would be livid. But no, he is always around when he's not at work. And my mum and dad are really helpful. And so yeah, it took a lot of work, but I kind of felt really flat when it was done.
I guess it's like I've been working on this for so long and now it's finished, and that part of you's thinking, right, what's next?
I know. Well, my husband said, Louise, you're not writing another book yet, are you? But not yet. Just give me a minute and I'll get there. So yeah, I have got the second book is for toddlers, so that's 2 to 3 year olds, and then the third book is for preschoolers. because there was also, you know, when I was talking to my editor, and she said, well, why have you decided to do it in the 3 different age brackets? And so we had a big conversation. Hello?